Welcome, everyone, to In Your Best Interest, an ALM First podcast, a show that explores common depository challenges, gives you an insider view of the latest market trends, and shares stories and insights from industry leaders. I'm your host, Mike Ensweiler. Today's financial leaders face unprecedented challenges, from harnessing AI and navigating fintech disruption to managing regulatory pressures and economic uncertainty. In this complex landscape, effective leadership requires more than vision. It demands discipline, process, and the ability to create clarity amid constant change. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Jamie Ledin, Associate Professor at Vanderbilt University, who shares her framework of the 5 practices of impactful leaders. She'll discuss the discipline behind great leadership, the power of perspective in high-stakes decision-making, and practical strategies for preparing teams for uncertainty. We'll explore how financial leaders can move beyond managing complexity to thriving within it. Dr. Ledin, thanks for joining us and welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. What an absolute honor to spend some time with you today.
You know, we actually had the pleasure of meeting earlier this year at an industry conference, and I really enjoyed your sharp insights and dynamic presentation style. So before we dive into effective leadership in today's challenging landscape, I'd love for our audience to get to know you a little better. Would you mind sharing a fun fact about yourself?
I'd be honored to. I don't know if it's fun, but I think usually people find it interesting. I live in Nashville, Tennessee, and I'm pretty biased. I think it's pretty fabulous here, and people seem to be getting the word and moving to Nashville. But I say I have great authority that it is a wonderful place to live, because in my albeit long life now, I have lived in 2 other countries and 10 states. So I think I have some authority when I say Nashville, Tennessee is a fantastic place to live.
Cool. Awesome. Well, I think everyone enjoys visiting Nashville, that's for sure.
That's right.
All right.
Nothing like Broadway.
All right. You've worked with leaders across industries, from corporate executives to credit union boards. What do you love most about working with leaders, especially in industries like finance where the stakes are high?
I love the complexity of it. I'm finding that leaders in this financial space aren't just managing teams. Everybody's doing that. They're also navigating high pressure decisions. Those decisions are affecting people's futures and livelihoods. What excites me most is helping these financial leaders find clarity in that complexity. Because we don't want to act like the complexity isn't there. It's absolutely there. And that pressure is getting stronger. So what can I do when I can help a leader when they get grounded in purpose and start leading with discipline and intention? I find that everything changes. And most importantly, not just for that leader, but for that entire organization and those that they serve.
So without giving away your whole keynote, can you share one of the 5 practices and why it's especially relevant right now for financial leaders?
Absolutely. This feels like a teaser to get people to come. And I like that. Good. Come on.
That's
come
the goal.
So
Yeah.
I like it. So there are 5 practices. I'll just highlight one that feels extremely relevant, especially for this audience, and that's perspective. I think that it's extremely critical right now. There's so much noise for all of us, but again, thinking deeply about this audience, there's so much noise with markets shifting, teams evolving, regulations changing. Maybe that's an understatement, but it's easy. It's so easy for leaders to just get stuck in the weeds. I can't control this. I can't control that. So if I can help people think about perspective, about stepping back and asking, am I focused on what matters most and what matters most right now? I find that when leaders will just pause, realign, it doesn't just help them make better decisions. It gives their teams clarity and confidence. I think it also models for the rest of the team that thinking and discerning are key skills. And sometimes that's something we overlook. Again, kind of winding back to the first part of my answer here, of there's so much noise that there's real power in practicing this practice of perspective and getting clarity. So I think that's what I'd like to highlight and maybe tease a little of hopefully inspiring people to think about that today and then when we're together next month.
So, I've heard you say before that leadership doesn't just require vision, it requires discipline and process. Can you break that down for us?
Absolutely. Thanks for asking. I think we tend to glorify, maybe a little bit of a strong word, but I'm going to use it anyway. We tend to glorify visionary leadership. But I like to say that vision without execution is just a wish.
Yeah.
Leaders I've seen thrive, especially in demanding environments like the one that this audience is working in, have to have discipline. They operate with intention. They build processes around how they set priorities, how they plan, and how they hold themselves accountable. But this type of discipline, sometimes people hear that and think that's limiting, Jamie. This kind of discipline does not limit you. It actually gives you more freedom to lead effectively. Someone once told me, and I'll talk about this a lot more in the keynote, someone once told me that discipline is a consistent regimen leading to freedom of action. And who doesn't want freedom of action?
So, what's one leadership behavior you believe is underrated but essential, especially for leaders managing complex financial organizations?
It's difficult to narrow it down to one, but the first one that's coming to mind is I'd say it's being willing to have hard conversations quickly. And you'll notice I carefully chose those words, being willing to have hard conversations quickly. So not just conversations, sometimes we do that, but it's having those hard conversations and having those quickly. Leaders, well, let me back that up. People, just people in general, not just leaders. Sometimes, I chose these words carefully. Sometimes, a lot of times, if we're going to be honest, a lot of times avoid uncomfortable topics. Oh, performance issues, misalignment on goals, tough trade-offs, right? You're thinking of those. You're thinking of different ones, I'm sure. But to quote Brene Brown, clarity is kindness. And that's such a simple statement, but it's true. We need to, as leaders, be willing to have those hard conversations, have them quickly, let people understand what we're thinking, because clarity is kindness. The best leaders that I know lean into those moments with empathy and directness. And again, I want to really emphasize those word choices, but lean into them with empathy. Everybody likes that, but people also appreciate directness. In a high accountability world like finance, avoiding tough conversations, that only adds risk, and that's not something that you're looking for.
Have you seen that change over time, in your experience as a professor with the different generations of folks? And I know this is a gross, kind of, I don't want to say stereotype, but generalization. I mean, do you see that changing over time? Because we certainly see that with our workforce, just different perspectives and behaviors. And, I see it with my kids, because they're so glued to their phone, it's hard to have one-on-one difficult conversations that really need to be had.
I think that's I'm with you. We want to avoid overgeneralizations, but I can look at my own household. My children are separate. I have two children. They're 5 years apart. One is at the end of this generation we call millennials. One is at the beginning of a Gen Z. And it's amazing to see their difference, the differences of how they view the world, of how they operate. There really is a shift that has happened. As leaders, we need to be preparing for that risk. And how do we have that conversation? Again, we want to manage people as individuals and treat people as individuals. But I think as leaders, if we want to have difficult conversations with people and have those hard conversations and have them quickly, we do want to be mindful of the individual. Is this a Gen Z? And be careful of stereotypes, but how do I communicate with them? What do these words mean to me? Maybe lean a little bit more into empathy. I think it's a really fair question. I've been at Vanderbilt. This will be my 9th year teaching there, which is hard to believe. But I've absolutely seen a change. And I was teaching only in the MBA program. So of course I had much older students, and now I've switched to undergrad. And it's definitely, as you know, a leader in the classroom, as a professor, I've had to change some of those things. I would recommend a book called Anxious Generation. I know it's been a runaway bestseller for those leaders that are leading Gen Z, parenting in the office, whatever it may be, professor. I found it to be a helpful resource. And again, we don't want to lean into a stereotype too much, but we also, as leaders, want to be prepared and to have those difficult conversations, and thinking about something I said earlier about perspective. What is the perspective of that individual? We're not always going to get it right as leaders, but I think that your folks that work for you will appreciate that you're at least trying to understand and asking those right questions. So I hope that's helpful.
No, that's great. I appreciate that. So what should leaders be doing right now to prepare their teams for the uncertainty ahead?
That's a great question, because that's sort of the theme of 2025. I think that they should be creating systems that reduce ambiguity. Ambiguity is not a good place to work. And what do I mean by that? That means clearly defining purpose, setting maybe a small number of focused priorities, and consistently reinforcing the plan. That's what I mean by a system. People don't need certainty to thrive, but they do need clarity. And again, back to that, clarity is kindness, right? When things inevitably shift, which they are, and they will continue to. So when things inevitably shift, it's the leaders who've built that clarity into their culture who adapt the fastest. Now I know I've got people's attention, because that's what we're looking for. We're looking to adapt the fastest. We have to accept that it's uncertainty. Okay, we all kind of agree with that. But what have we as leaders, what systems have we set up? If I ask your team, what's the purpose? What is your purpose? What are the 1, 2, 3 focus priorities of your team? And then what are you as the leader? What are you doing to reinforce that plan? Because your folks can thrive if they've got clarity. And you as a leader, we don't want to sugarcoat it. Oh, things are going to be great. We think things are going to really change in 2026. Don't think anyone believes that. So what are we doing right now to prepare them? I think we also can help ourselves and our team and our peers and our bosses and just our whole culture. If we help people understand that uncertainty is kind of normal and becoming more normal, and in those moments, we need to focus in on what matters most. And here's my professor hat, and learn. What are we learning from it?
So, I love that kind of the only thing constant is change idea. Yep. And so how do you, this sounds great, but how do you really help people put this into practice? Because, whether it's me to my team or me looking to my boss, I love that clarity is kindness, that when things inevitably shift, there's always going to be this uncertainty, but how are you prepared for it? How do you change quickest? Like, how do you help people go through that process?
Well, we have a framework, and I'm going to teach you that during the keynote. But I do want to go back to when I work with teams. I ask them, what is your purpose? And we think that's a pretty simple answer. At XYZ, our purpose is. But what I find interesting and helps me look smart is I'll go to 3 leaders in the C-suite, and then I'll go to 3 leaders on the front line, and then I'll go to 3 middle managers, and I'll get 12 different answers. You'll notice I didn't even name 12 leaders, but yeah. I go to 5 leaders and I get 12 answers. Well, that is the opposite of clarity is kindness, because then I can go to the leader and go, you have a problem. People are not understanding what the purpose is. They heard you in a meeting say this, so they thought that was the purpose. And then they saw this printed on the wall. But then culture is, in my Jamie Ledin definition, what majority of the people do the majority of the time. Not what you have on your website, not what you have laminated on the wall, beautiful poster, none of that. But what do the majority of the people do the majority of the time is your culture. So as leaders, we need to be constantly and consistently working on systems that reinforce the culture and the purpose to have us not just survive 2025, but thrive in 2025. And that's what I'm always pushing leaders that I'm working with and teams that I'm working with. That what is your purpose? What are the goals? Really, really simple. We cannot execute on 12 goals. We can't execute on 2 or 3. We can execute on 2 or 3. And that's, with Jamie Ledinism. I always say, do you want to do things with mediocrity? No, of course not. What a silly question. Okay, then let's drop some things, because you can do 2 or 3 things with excellence. You cannot, your team, your people cannot do 12 things with excellence. So they're doing them with mediocrity. Then you have mediocrity. Mediocrity is the norm of culture, and you have mediocre results. That usually gets somebody's attention when I can say it like that.
Well, that's great. And especially for me, keep it simple. Like, I think
right.
people have a tendency to overcomplicate things. And
Absolutely.
I think the simpler it is, the easier it is to adopt, to adhere to believe in, all of those. Mm-hmm. Well, that's awesome. Well, I'm really getting excited to see you in action at the forum. So what are you most looking forward to about the ALM First Financial Forum?
So much. What an honor to be included in this forum. I'm really looking forward to being there. I love being in a full room with thoughtful, committed leaders. And I like this forum where it's creating space to step away from the day-to-day and think big. Let's think big. And for me, it's the energizing part for me of being a part of the conversations like this, of helping people hopefully reconnect with why they lead, and leave them some practical tools that they can use immediately. That's how I always try to do these things, is get you excited, get you energized, teach you some stuff. And when you walk out an hour later, it wasn't just, I hope you feel good, I hope you enjoyed it, but I also hope you go, oh, and I have some tools that I'm going to put into practice today.
Well, I'm excited to think big, especially, keynoting this event for the non-financial aspects of running a high-performance organization. So this is going to be a great time. Really looking forward to hearing more of your insights and any closing thoughts you want to leave us with today.
I think that the time to prepare for financials upheavals that are coming is today. And I think that listeners and people at our forum need to come with an open mind and the willingness to learn and lead and always get better. And that's one of my mantras too. It's let's always get better. I hope that they come in the beginning ready to relax and hopefully reconnect with old friends, make new friends, but learn and get better. And let's take on this conference with gusto and excitement.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time and your insights, and we very much look forward to seeing you in Banff.
I am very much looking forward to it. Take care.
As we conclude our discussion on impactful leadership, it's clear that effective leadership in today's financial landscape requires both vision and disciplined execution. The conversation with Dr. Jamie Ledin highlighted several critical practices that distinguish exceptional leaders in complex environments. My 3 takeaways from today's conversation. First, perspective is essential. Stepping back to focus on what matters most right now helps leaders cut through the noise and provides teams with the clarity they need to perform effectively. Second, leadership discipline creates freedom of action rather than limitation. As Jamie emphasized, vision without execution is just a wish, highlighting the importance of building intentional processes around priorities and accountability. And lastly, clarity truly is kindness. Leaders who are willing to have hard conversations quickly, particularly around performance and alignment, create stronger cultures and reduce organizational risk. Thank you for joining us on In Your Best Interest. We hope this discussion provides valuable perspective as you develop your own leadership practices and prepare your teams for the challenges ahead. We have a robust workshop, conference, and webinar schedule, so be sure to visit our website for more details on these, as well as our Education Hub and Resource Center for recorded webinars, articles, and more. As always, stay safe, stay healthy, and thank you for listening to In Your Best Interest, an ALM First podcast.
The content in this podcast is provided for informational purposes and should not be relied upon as recommendations or financial planning advice. We encourage you to seek personalized advice from qualified professionals regarding all investment decisions. Current and future holdings are subject to risk, and past performance is no guarantee of future results. Podcasts should not be copied, distributed, published, or reproduced, in whole or in part. Information presented herein is for discussion and illustrative purposes only, and is not a recommendation or an offer or solicitation to buy or sell any securities. The views and opinions expressed by the ALM First Financial Advisor speakers are their own as of the date of the recording. Any such views are subject to change at any time based upon market or other conditions, and ALM First Financial Advisors disclaims any responsibility to update such views. These views should not be relied on as investment advice, and because investment decisions are based on numerous factors, may not be relied on as an indication of trading intent on behalf of any ALM First Financial Advisors product. Neither ALM First Financial Advisors nor the speaker can be held responsible for any direct or incidental loss incurred by applying any of the information offered. ALM First Financial Advisors is an SEC-registered investment advisor with a fiduciary duty that requires it to act in the best interests of clients and to place the interests of clients before its own. However, registration as an investment advisor does not imply any level of skill or training.